and thanks for joining Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. I created this show now 6 years ago. We're about to go into season 7 to share resources, tips, and practical strategies that help women to navigate career and life challenges and to know that they're not alone. Each week, my guest and I get together and co-create a show to encourage women to be more confident, resilient, and brave in their career and life choices. So you can find this show now on E360 TV network, on your favorite streaming service like Roku and Apple TV and Amazon Fire. And we stream live weekly on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you prefer to listen to your favorite shows, we're also on all the podcast channels. So if something inspires you today and you want more of the same, please subscribe to your favorite channel, leave us a comment, and share your favorite episodes so we can create more ripples for women around the world. And don't forget to check out the show notes below so you can connect in very different ways with my guest and me. So, as I often do, I start the show with a question. Do you compare yourself to other people when you measure your own productivity? Do you sometimes fall short when you do that? Fall short of measuring up to colleagues and friends and what they achieve? This comparison trap can lead to some very unproductive behavior. And we're going to talk about that with my expert today, Rashelle Isip. Rashelle is the order expert. She's a productivity consultant and time management coach who helps people manage their time and energy to reduce stress, work less, and make more money in their businesses and careers. She's written several books on the subjects of managing time and getting organized that provide practical tips and advice to bring more balance into people's lives. I like to call it more harmony. As a sought-after expert, Rashelle is a contributing columnist for Inc.com and is featured in online media such as Fast Company, NBC News, The Washington Post, and The Atlantic. So let's talk about productivity and learn what mindset has to do with it. Welcome, Rashelle.
Hi, Maria. Thanks for having
Hello.
me on today.
It is my pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you here. I appreciate that you made time in your busy schedule. We're all busy women, and this is an important subject, I think. So I'd like to pull back the curtain first a little bit on you and get a little bit of background. So, what got you so interested in productivity and time management?
Sure. So, I've always been interested in organizing things ever since I was very young. And that just naturally, transitioned into my studies in college and also as an adult and finding my way. And I just really have this passion, for helping people and showing them that there is an easier, simpler way of doing things. We all have things that we need to do, throughout life. But the practice and the process doesn't have to be the struggle. So I really see it as my goal to help people smooth out those issues and challenges so that they can do what it is that they need to do in life, whether it's contributing to work, raising a family, being a great friend or family member, just being really present and wholeheartedly there in one's community and world.
I love that you said you help people to smooth it out. I love that.
Right.
That just conjures a great image for me. That that it creates a sense of calm, continuity, just ease. That's what that describes to me. So I really want to dig into this with you because you talk about mindset. Why is learning to master our mindset so important when it comes to how we think about our productivity?
Right. So your mindset is always with you, right? And it also influences everything that you do. It could be your professional life, in your career, or your position at work, or in your business. It also influences your personal relationships, like those with your friends and family, and others in your community, maybe in a volunteer or religious capacity. And your mindset really is the fuel for everything you think and at the end eventually do. So, it's really important that we're aware that mindset really is the driver of our beliefs, our thoughts, and ultimately our actions. And it's also, I think, really important to understand that our mindset is something we can control, right? The outside world will always have things going on. There will always be distractions. There will always be these updates. There will always be the latest fads and techniques and tools. But our mindset is something that is 100% within our grasp at any moment in time, that we can dial back, dial down, and really direct in a way that's meaningful for us in our individual lives. And I think it's also important for us to master our mindset because it will naturally help us do our work with more ease and flow. Once you better understand your thoughts and how they relate to your actions, you can better use that to your advantage. And we're going to talk about this more in our conversation. But, you know, you just can't get from point A to point B without a plan, right? We all have a plan usually when we start out, when we're thinking about being productive. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. But when we're aware of our mindset and what we want to get out of our work, that can really be a great driver into helping us select the right tools, the right tips, the right techniques, and everything else that will help us along our way.
So, the word that comes to my mind as I hear you describe that is attitude.
Yes,
So,
very much so.
when we decide to do something that we want to do or we have to do, we're assigned to do, depending on the situation. Uh, it's easier to do it. At least it is for me if I approach it with a positive attitude, with
Right.
with a mindset that empowers me to do what I have to do and not feel like it's drudgery.
Right, right. I mean, it's a really subtle difference because I've worked with people who have the right attitude. They realize that um, things aren't working as they should, right here and now. They know that they need to make a change, but the way that they go about that mindset, about the attitude or the solution, is a bit skewed. So, an example would be someone who comes to me, and I've seen this time and time again. Someone will consult with me or work with me, coaching, and they'll ask me, "What's the best productivity tool? What's the best productivity technique? What is it? I need to know." And I think there's this thought that there's some sort of silver bullet out there that will solve all of our problems.
Right.
Um, of course, there are always great tools, techniques, and apps that you can use. But the question really isn't what's the best one, but what is a great solution for me right now and within how I work and approach the world and my work and personal life.
Okay, so that that leads me to my next question. It sounds like we need to first define what productivity means to us, right?
Yes, very much
So
so.
why is that so critical? Why is that the place to start?
Well, I touched upon it just a few moments ago when I was saying that there's all this external pressure, right, from the world about what productivity is. We hear all these things, in the news, from social media, maybe from our friends, or in a piece of literature that we've read about this is the way to be productive and this is the way that you need to do it. But oftentimes that may not be what you need at this very moment. We're always going to have that input, as I mentioned earlier, but it really helps to take some time and take a step back to really think about, well, okay, there's that external productivity, but what about me? What would really help me and be of benefit to me in getting my work done? Um, I always like to say to people, we're all unique, right? We have all of these unique experiences and backgrounds and knowledge and education. And we really can't expect that a single productivity tool, technique, tip, or approach will help us solve, the problem. So that's why it's so important for us to really take a step back and think about, well, okay, I want to be more productive, but what does that really mean exactly? Am I just saying that for the sake of saying that? Or do I think that is what I need to do? Maybe this is a time and a place where we need to really pull back the layers and think about, well, okay, if I want to be more productive, well, what does that mean for me? What would be of benefit to me in my day to help me do things better with more ease and with more flow? So it really is touching upon, your unique situation. I'll say to people, productivity is not, one size fit all. For some folks, productivity may mean adding things. It may mean adding break time. It may mean making sure that you get your full vacations scheduled and taken care of for the year. For others, it might mean subtracting something. It might mean cutting back on the amount of meetings or scheduled personal activities after work. And for others, it might be more of a neutral approach. They might just need to balance out or put together, a more flexible way of work and play in a way that works for them. Um, and I think it's really important for us to take that step back and think about how we want productivity to look and how we want that to help us in our lives. I have a great story to illustrate this, like especially now since we're just coming off the Labor Day holiday in summer, unofficial end of summer. When we're talking about vacations, people get really excited. They want to take their vacation, and I think in the sense or the essence of taking that vacation, they have a preconceived notion that a vacation means a certain thing. But in reality, your vacation can be whatever you want it to be. So I once took a vacation and I basically just sat on the beach the whole day, all day long. I took a trip to a major city here on the East Coast. And, while I could have gone seeing, which I did a little bit here and there, you know, at that moment in time for me, where I was in my life, what I wanted to do most of all was just to sit on the beach. And I did that. I gazed out over the horizon, just took in that salty air, the feeling of the sand in my toes, the humid weather, the seagulls flying around. For me at that moment in time, that was a very productive vacation because I could just disconnect and chill out. I really needed that vacation and that particular vacation at that point in time. I didn't even take any photos on that trip. And I don't think I took any videos either. For me, it was just a chance and a moment for me to relax and, recharge before my next thing. So, I really do encourage folks, when it comes to productivity, are you just saying that you want to be productive for the sake of being productive? Or is there something further that you want to address or talk about when it comes to your own personal life?
Okay. So, yeah, I totally agree with and your vacation sounds wonderful to me, by the way. That's deciding what productivity means to you and not comparing yourself. Like I said in the intro, uh, that can be a trap that we fall into when we compare ourselves to everybody else's. You look on social media and you see someone else's vacation. There are 83 photographs every single day of all the things they did and all the places they went and all the people they saw, and that seems like fabulous. But when I think about all the energy that would take to accomplish in a week, that exhausts me, just the thought of it. So I'm on the beach with you. And, when I think about what do I need? And I think that's where we start, right? What do
Yeah.
I need this to be for me? Whatever this is, this project, how can I be most productive in getting this done? This vacation, this relationship, whatever this is, what do I need it to be
Right. And I think there's a caveat as well. What do I need it to be for me right now at this very moment?
right now? Right.
Because I've been on vacations where I didn't just sit on the beach. I've gone out, I've gone sightseeing every day. I took lots of photos. You really have to check in with yourself
Right.
and be comfortable in
Yep.
saying, this is what I need for me right here, right now. And it's perfectly
Yeah.
fine, whatever I choose.
Right. And not feel guilty about it.
Right, right. And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of people, get themselves more upset than is necessary, because not only are you not enjoying your vacation or your project, you're just adding on that extra layer of worry and stress and frustration, which ultimately, as I said earlier, will affect your ability to get things done. If you're constantly preoccupied with,
Right.
did I do a good job? Am I giving it my all? So and so is doing it better. I don't have these resources. You're just draining all of your focus and your attention away from what needs to be done, where you need to be present at this very moment.
Yeah, so there's another example of how the mindset works in our favor or against us, right?
Yes, yes, very much so.
Yeah. So, okay. So defining productivity, this reminds me of a conversation I had on a previous show when we were talking about defining success for ourselves. It's really the same thing. It's the same approach. We need to define what those things mean to us and kind of stick with that and not compare ourselves to how others are doing it.
Right,
Be-
right.
because that's good for them, maybe if they haven't defined it for themselves, maybe they don't know whether it's good for them yet or not. But based on people listening to this show, if they sit back and recognize the fact that they have the right and the privilege to define productivity for themselves, as you say, in any given moment, based on the circumstances you're in, based on how you're feeling at the moment, being present with who you are and what you need, and defining it from there.
Yes. And I think a big part of that too, when it comes to mindset, is understanding first and foremost where you are. Are you coming from a mindset of lack, or are you coming from a mindset of abundance? So, a mindset of lack when it comes to productivity would be, I don't have enough time. There's never enough hours in the day. I'll never get this done. I have too much work. There's just so much to do. Um, that's really the telltale sign that you're approaching this from, a feeling or thoughts of lack, of just not
Right.
having enough, ever having enough. And you can contrast that with the mindset of abundance, where it's more of focus and being deliberate, as in, this is what I've chosen for myself today. These are the tasks that I'm going to work on. This is the way that I'm going to work on it. Yes, I may have other things that need my attention right now, and I will get to them, but for now, this is what I'm focusing on. So it really is about being present, being aware that time really doesn't end, that we always have this time available to us to do things. And we're not rushing or forcing, the next thing to happen. We can't do everything at once. We have to do things one at a time.
Right.
And, coming from that place of abundance can be much, much more uh, comfortable, when you just relax into it and
Right.
go with the flow.
And it's a choice to do that, one or the other, right? Coming from a place of lack or coming from a place of abundance. The complainer, right, would would say, I there's not enough time to do this project. Therefore, right? And then they take it, therefore, I'm going to procrastinate getting it started, or I'm not going to have time to do it well, so I'm just going to get it done. And the productivity suffers as a result of the way you approach it.
Right. Instead of actually completing the task, your job is now managing the thoughts about completing the task. So it becomes this whole other thing that you're preoccupied with.
Right.
It just takes over, and
And
it can be
it's zapping your energy, it's zapping your productivity.
very
It's
much
you're
so.
becoming you're becoming an obstacle for yourself, right?
Yes. Putting up the wall, putting up the barrier.
Those
Um,
roadblocks. Yeah.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And on the other side of that, when we approach it from a mindset of, I have time, I'm making a choice, I'm going to do this. I heard you say you can only do one at a time. Did you hear that, multitaskers out there? I'm one of them. But truly, we can only do one thing at a time in the moment, right? So we're working on this in the moment. Some of us who are claim to be great multitaskers, been doing it for years. I have my PhD in it, I think. But we really can only do one thing in the moment, and then in the next moment we might change to do something else. But in that moment, we're doing one thing. When we stop to realize how we are um, distracting ourselves from focusing on the one thing and deciding what that one thing is for more than just a moment, then we can truly be productive. And if we do that with a mindset that is, I have the resources I need, and if I don't, I'll ask for them to get this job done. I have the time I need, and if I don't, I'll extend what I need, right? I'll extend the
Mhm.
project until I can get it done the way I want to. Those are all choices we get to make.
Exactly. And I think a big part of this too is recognizing where you are. Here's an example. I once worked with someone who was concerned about, increasing their productivity. And they told me about a little ritual they had after they finished a chunk of work, either teaching or having a meeting. They'd go and chat with the secretary who was there, or people working in the office. And it was nice and leisurely. They might have a cup of tea, or, have a glass of water, and just spend a few moments, catching up. How are you doing today? What's new with you? And would then proceed on to their next bit of work, scheduled on the calendar. And it was really fascinating because that person said, I feel like that time is a waste of time. And I
Oh,
said to them, oh, why is it? And they said, well, I've read in or heard in things that you should go from one thing to the next and, just get it done. But I feel like that's just wasting time. I could be reading, I could be writing emails, I could be doing all these things. And so I asked them, well, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that break? And they said, I absolutely love it. It energizes me. I look forward to it. I have great conversations with these people, and it really re-energizes me for the next part of my work. And so I, pointed out to them, I said, well, it sounds like you are, being hard on yourself. You're criticizing yourself for actually taking that break and for actually recognizing that that is the thing that energizes you and that provides you with the sustenance and the happiness and the joy that would help you do your work. So why
What's
would that
wrong
be a
with
bad
that?
thing? Why would that be a bad thing?
Right. What's wrong
And
with that?
and they
Yeah.
thought for a moment, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Right. Right. It's just
So
a matter of reframing, right?
right. So for
Yeah.
them, the issue wasn't so much of I have to, knock out these breaks that I already have in my day. But maybe it was, maybe this is an instance where we have to look at something else in the way in which they're doing their work that could be streamlined or could be made, more efficient. Maybe that's where we need to look. So I think part of the lesson for folks is not to necessarily jump on the first thing that comes to mind. That may not be the actual issue at hand. There might be another layer that you have to go down into to uncover.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can uh, you call them layers, pull back the layers of what we are doing, whether it's professionally or personally, so that we can find ways to improve our productivity in areas that we've defined, right? Because we've already gone through the definition process that we've defined that we want to make improvements in.
Right.
So, where do we find those? How do we uncover those?
Sure. So I like to suggest to people that they think of something right here, right now, that's causing them a bit of discomfort, a bit of pain. And you probably have an inkling as to what this thing is. It could be something in your regular day to day routine, it could be something that happens during the week or throughout the month, just something in your experience that really irks you, that makes you uncomfortable. So it could be something as simple as putting together materials for a meeting. It could be arriving late to appointments. It could be organizing files on the top of your desk. Name the thing right here and right now that's giving you the most frustration, because that's a great place to start. Why? Once you identify the problem, you can find a solution for it. And I think that simple shift from identifying the problem to actively looking for a solution and then acting on it can just breathe a whole new, level of energy and relaxation into your life and relief, just knowing that, hey, this problem exists, but there is a solution to it, and I can actually take action on that. So, in the examples I just gave, if you are preparing things last minute for a meeting and you're always misplacing things, or you just can't remember what you need to do, maybe this is a time where you might need to create a solution of a checklist or a meeting preparation template, which would allow you to do things one by one in preparation for any meeting. If you're always arriving late or later than you would like for meetings and appointments, maybe this is a time to think about how many minutes you need to stop the work that you're doing at the moment in order to get yourself ready to leave for your next appointment. And if it's something like organizing the files on top of your desk, maybe it's just starting a little habit. Perhaps when you finish a chunk of work or at the end of the day, to tidy up things and to replace items where they belong. And if there's no place yet in which to store items, maybe that's a signal for you to sit down and start thinking about creating some storage locations for files or in a bookcase or in baskets. It really is taking the time to identify that problem and then come up with solution and then act on it.
Okay, so I can think of lots of things in my life that I could identify as potential problem areas that I could resolve.
Okay.
Um,
Can we
what?
narrow it down to one thing that just is been
Yeah,
on your mind for a long, long time?
yeah. So okay, so oh, it's a big one. Um, but I understand the process that you're describing here to identify what it is, and there may be many of them. The
Mm-hmm.
thought that came to me is to write them all down because that's
Mm-hmm.
the way my mind works. To make a list of what are the things that I would like to, and this would allow me to ultimately be more productive if I don't have all these things hanging out there
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
my mind. My mind, I would be decluttering my mind
Yes.
by
Yes.
taking care of some of these things.
Right.
So
And
I'm no
just
longer thinking of them.
exactly. I always tell people that I work with, if you're getting into, I guess you would call it just the loop of all the things that you have to do, take a minute to stop and just write it down.
Yep.
It
Yep.
is so much more easy to see the things when they're listed out in paper, because when we're in our mind, one thing can lead to another, and then you think about like a
Right.
subtask or other items. But here you can actually see it clear as day, and you can actually pick it apart and make it
Right.
tangible too, because it's on a piece of
Right.
paper or it's in a notebook. So
And
yeah,
then
that
you can break it down.
exactly. So
So
once you have your list of items out, you can, I like to say to people, choose the things that just, that really aren't that important right now, because sometimes that's easier to do before you get down to the nitty gritty. So out of the list that you have, what could wait? What really isn't that important? And you separate those items from the list.
right.
And then as you move things around on the list, you'll get down to maybe five, three, and then two items. Then you have to make a choice. And, I really suggest to people that you've already whittled it down. Now you just have to make a choice. And, the thing that for you right now just, gives you the most, frustration or feelings of
Yeah.
being uncomfortable. And then just tackle that. There really is no right or wrong here. You're not going to be penalized for choosing the wrong answer or the right answer. It's it's really just a process to help you
And here's the
whittle things
thing.
down.
Here's the thing, Rochelle. You can always change your mind, right?
Exactly,
Because
exactly.
priorities do shift, right? So what
Yes.
was important for you today,
Mhm.
tomorrow the sky may fall, and
Mhm.
it shifts your priorities. And that list you made yesterday could just blow up because something way more urgent happened for you today. And that's life. So give
Yes.
yourself some grace, give
Mhm.
yourself permission to change your mind, but also commit to the fact that these were things that have bothered you in the past for whatever reason, and that if you were to take care of them at some point in some priority order and in some uh, manner of breaking them apart, getting the baby steps done that will ultimately lead to getting the big job done, and
Right.
checking that off your list
Right. And
and feeling like you
and s-
really did something good.
right. And sometimes, when it comes to identifying the things, you may be surprised at what comes up that you actually need to take care of first. It may
Yeah.
not seem logically, the thing to do, when we're talking about projects or assignments or work or personal or household things. Um, it just might be something else. I once worked with someone who, was very busy and was basically just overwhelmed with tasks about all the things they wanted to do, that they had to do, and they were just stuck in this cycle. And I was working with them to try and get them to identify one thing that they could do right now that was just causing them so much, you know, so much pain or concern. And it actually had nothing to do with what was on their list. It was something personal that they had to deal with. And thank goodness they took care of it. And they later told me, I feel so much better for taking care of that thing. It
Yeah.
was bothering me for such a long time, and I've been putting it off and I've been putting it off. But now that I feel a bit better, I can see my way, more clearly now into what I need to do with all the other things. So I think for people, to understand that, yes, our priorities change. What's important today may not be important tomorrow. And
Right.
that sometimes you're so in the situation that you can't see that the priority that you need to address may not be the logical one, or the thinking mind one. It
And
might
it may
be.
not, right. It may not even have made it to your list. I love that story because of the outcome.
Yes.
When
Yes.
when when she recognized that there was something kind of underlying it all, and when she took care of that, things opened up for her. There was more clarity, right?
Right.
The other things that had to be done kind of just fell into place, and she was able to tick them off. The sense of relief that happens, I think, when we are mindful of what it is we need to take care of, and we take care of that first, magic happens. It's like it just opens things up for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it really is like unblocking an energetic dam that you've put up for
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah,
right? Or that
yeah.
that blockage. You
That's
know,
right. Oh, I love the way you put that. Yeah. Yeah.
once you've removed, that bunch of rocks, or that bunch of piled up debris, or tree limbs, then everything can start flowing.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
just never know where that block is. So
Yep.
it's important just to be aware and open to the possibilities of,
And
this
it,
could
yeah,
this could be the turning point. This could be what I need to change or shift right now in my life.
right. And it takes us being really honest with ourselves, being introspective, and just allowing the ideas to kind of flow to us, right? At in that
Right.
while we are like deep thinking, or meditating, maybe not thinking at all, maybe just taking a walk in nature and going, okay, so what is it I need to take care of first? Just ask the question, put it out there. What is it I need to take care of first that will open the floodgates for me and let the rest of what I have to do just flow? Just put it out there, see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, I find too that the actual physical doing of a task or an item will sometimes direct you as well. You can certainly ask, for guidance, what's the thing that I need to work on. But sometimes if you learn by doing, or, feeling as you're working on something, you can get to work starting on something, maybe 5 minutes in, and you might just get this little feeling, or a feeling maybe in the pit of your stomach, or just like a little tap in your shoulder, like, this is not what I'm supposed to be working on right now.
It's your
I need
intuition.
I need to be
Listen.
I need to be working on that other thing. It may not seem or make logical sense, but let me just take care of that, and then I can come back to this.
Yeah,
So, for all
that's
those little times when you get that little twinge, of that intuition, see what happens. Go
yeah,
along with it. It won't take that long, probably, and
yeah,
just see how you feel after following that.
yeah. It's a whisper, it's a nudge, it's yeah, and paying attention to those things, I think are really important, and I think especially for women,
Hmm.
because our we it, those of us who have worked in the corporate world or are still working in the corporate world, in a world that was created by men for men, and with no concern for the way we are, uh, and we are now fitting ourselves into that. Our intuition is the guide that we should never shut off. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you mentioned that. There are, nudges, whispers, however it comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, divine downloads for some people, and or the for me, sometimes it's like a hammer on my head, because I haven't paid attention for too long, and it requires that for me to get the get the, the get the message.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, pay attention to that stuff because it's really important. You know what comes to mind, Rashelle, as I listening to your talk, and we're talking about how the definition of productivity is so personal and individual and unique to each one of us, and we really need to define that for ourselves. There are so many books and so many courses and so much to read out there about with advice about productivity tips. Um, and I share some of them with my clients, some of the ones that work for me. The one is, at the beginning of every day, pick 3 things that you're going to get done that day. 3 things, only 3 things. And if that feels like too much, do 2. And if that feels like too much, do 1. And don't spend more than 90 minutes on any particular task before you give yourself a break. I mean, those are productivity tips that I've learned that work for me, and I share with clients to see if they work for them. I know that you have a gazillion of them, being the order expert that you are. But what do you say to someone who says, "Well, I heard about this productivity tip, and it doesn't work for me"?
Mm.
What do you say to them?
Well, for that, as I mentioned earlier, there really isn't, the one productivity tip. But when it comes to something like that, I would ask the person to think about, okay, it didn't work for me in this way. What about in another way? So sometimes when I'm working with people, I'll ask them, did this tool work for you at work? And they'll say, no, it didn't work for me at work. But as I'm talking with them, you get the feeling or realize that, hey, this actually might work for me at home. Or we might be talking about a certain, app or a technique, and it might have worked for them, at work in one type of project or assignment, but in the other, it doesn't work. So I think the thing here to remember and to take away is that all of these tips are flexible. You can pick and choose and work with each to find out what works for you, right? There's no law that says you have to take any productivity tip or advice or technique and use it that singular way under all circumstances. Everything is flexible, everything is fluid. So if you used a tip and it didn't work in a certain way, try it somewhere else. Try it in a different part of your day when you're working on a different type of task. Try it maybe in your personal life. You can also edit it, change it, be creative, see what you can come up with. But just because it doesn't work, off the bat doesn't mean that it's completely, you know, valueless.
Yeah,
So I think
right.
it's really important for people to take a hands-on approach and to get creative and have fun with things. And I've seen this time and time again with my clients. I'll give them a suggestion. Well, the way that you're describing this to me, you might want to try it this way. And they'll go off and try it. And then they'll come back and they'll say, it was helpful up to this point. But now that I've had that experience, I know what I need to do. I want to do it this way. And that will
Yeah,
keep me on track. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's the actual act and the doing of it and having that experience and getting some feedback that can help you make that next decision about, okay, what's my next step, or what's the next tool that I want to try out and use.
yeah. So, for me, and we're gonna segue right into your final tips and key takeaways.
Hmm.
But this is a key takeaway for me, that no matter what book you read, no matter what coach you work with, no matter what productivity expert you are taking advice from, everything is just an idea for you to try. And if it works that way, great. If it doesn't work, or if it works for a few minutes and then it doesn't work, find another way. It's
Hmm.
now your tip, right? You get to do with
Hmm.
it anything you want to make it work for you, or kick it to the curb and try something different. So
Exactly.
that's my biggest takeaway. There is no, you started off by saying there is no magic bullet to make everyone productive in exactly the same way, because no one is exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And
All
we
right.
have, yeah,
Yeah. So let's all right, let's segue to our final segment here, Rashelle, and let's wrap this up with your key tips and takeaways. What's your first
sure.
one?
So I think the first thing really is to be honest with yourself, to really ask yourself, what's the issue that's going on here? Is it an issue that I think I need to have, or is it really the issue at hand? The more honest you can be with yourself, the better you can prepare yourself to actually solve that problem or that concern. The
Okay.
second thing I would recommend for folks is to practice action on those small tasks, the ones that come up, every single day. I think there's a tendency for us, just, being human and being in society, to overthink things. And for the items that are really very ephemeral, that can be completed in a short amount of time, should be just completed. We don't have to spend minutes and hours, thinking about it. If it's on your mind, if it can be done quickly, just go ahead and do it. You don't need to make it a big deal and put all of your energy and focus onto this task that you might have done, over and over again. Like maybe making an appointment at the doctor's. Maybe it's doing some filing that that you need to do. Maybe it's writing or putting together some bills or invoices together. The things that just have to be done. If you can, just take a step back, recognize it for what it is, a task that has to be done, and then just do it. And, I think thirdly, is to really be gentle with yourself, right? There's nothing really in this world when it comes to productivity, um, when it's yourself that's, giving the direction. So what I mean by that is, you are guiding your life. You're making all the decisions. And I think the more gentle and forgiving you can be with yourself about getting things done or what you accomplished in a day, and to realize that, hey, you're human, right? We only have so many, hours in a day. We all have things to do. You know, there's no such thing as perfection. And I always, tell people that I work with, look, the idea here is progress, not perfection. So if you set aside, a few tasks to accomplish today and you didn't do them, so what? Nothing. You'll get to them tomorrow or later on. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's no need
Yeah.
to, beat yourself up over that, because there will always be tasks and things for us to do. So I think the more gentle and, relaxed about it that you can be with yourself. If you had a bad day, you had a bad day. Okay. Today I wanted to go out for a walk, but I wasn't feeling well. Okay, I can do it tomorrow, or I can do it later in the day. There's all these options that we have available to us, but I think we get too bogged down in this is the only way to do something. And that's the only way that success looks like for me. So, let's
Yeah.
let's expand that approach. Let's expand that view.
The word that comes to my mind as I hear your third tip is, to be forgiving of ourselves, right? Give ourselves grace.
Yes.
Because, and it's one of my productivity tips actually for myself. When I realize that at the end of my day, I didn't get everything done, I give myself permission to move that task to another day and just
Hmm.
stop thinking about it as a failure. It's not that I failed. I didn't get it done today. Didn't have time. Priorities shifted. Whatever
Right.
the reason, I just move it to another day so I don't forget about it, and I make a commitment to do it, and I give myself permission to move a task 3 times.
Hmm.
Once I've moved it the 3rd time, I have to do it. That's my commitment to myself. So that's how I do it, but it's forgiveness, right? It's just giving ourselves the grace to let things happen the way they happen, because they do.
Hmm.
We don't have control over everything.
Right.
That's a myth,
Yeah.
just like your your assertion that there is no such thing as perfection.
Right.
You're talking to a recovering perfectionist here. Uh, yeah, that yeah, there are some myths we need to dispel here.
All right.
Give
Yeah. And
yourself grace. I love that you ended on that. That was great. Rashelle, thank you
great.
so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. I'm sure that there are people in our audience who are going to want to reach out and get more from you. So tell us, what is the one best way for them to do that?
Sure. They can visit my website, which is theorderexpert.com. And there you can get a free downloadable ebook. And you can also look at the bunch of blog posts that I have, different articles on productivity, time management, and organization. And just check all the things out and see what speaks to you.
And the link for that is below as well. So, Rashelle, again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Maria. I had a good time.
Good. And for those of you watching and listening, I appreciate that you're a part of this community. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, comment, or click a star. Let us know if it hit the mark for you. And as a career and life coach, I help women navigate challenging times with more ease and grace. We were just talking about that. So, if something in the episode resonates with you and you'd like a fresh perspective about your situation, let's continue this conversation in my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. The links to it and to connect to Rashelle and me are in the show notes below, as I said. So let's meet again here next Wednesday for another inspiring conversation. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Until next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.